It's April 25th, 2019. And Sean Carroll is a theoretical physicist who recently, well, a few years ago, put on a group chat with people like Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins. Daniel Dennett was there for more of the time. Richard Dawkins, I think, was just there for one day. A group chat called Moving Naturalism Forward. So I watched a number of hours of that, and thought it was some parts were interesting, some parts of it were idiotic and pedantic, but some parts were interesting. So there was that occurrence. But then one thing that I found since I started, since I got married, starting having children, the more children I had, the less compatible I was socially with mostly leftist-run atheist groups, gray-haired, old hippie, populated seas of gray hair, hippie-run humanist groups, LGBTQ, AAIP, PZ, weirdo run, and widely populated Unitarian Universalist groups. The more children I had, the more I started to have shall we call it a normal life? The less compatible I was socially with these groups, and ex-Mormon groups too. So anyway, so there's this mention that in the context of Sean Carroll, insofar as I made note of his Moving Naturalism Forward conference, and after that, I became aware that within the college university system, there's this business of increased social justice warriorism, safe spaces, quelling free speech, trigger warnings, all that stuff. And then I made note of how Sean Carroll, theoretical physicist, supposed advocate of naturalism, moving naturalism forward. Because Sean Carroll said he was in favor of safe spaces. So, and also it's worth note that both Sean Carroll and Dan Dennett are very much anti-Trump. Trump derangement syndrome. Them along with Sam Harris. So Sam Harris, Dan Dennett, Sean Carroll, leftist thinkers, de facto philosophers, I guess, as much as a leftist atheist can be. Deranged about the election of Trump and wanting the rape-enabling pay-to-play harlot Hillary Clinton to be in. So I sent some messages to Sean Carroll on Twitter, and he blocked me. So Sean Carroll, they weren't abusive per se, they were just questioning his dogmas, his doctrines, his heresy trials, controversy trial, advocacy, de facto, dogmas, doctrines of the leftist atheist. So then he blocked me. He blocked me. So how does that move naturalism forward? To have ideas you disagree with be blocked from your view if you're a public intellectual like Sean Carroll. How is that moving naturalism forward? Well, what you really do is moving your leftist religion forward, your leftist de facto cult forward, instead of any sort of reasonable and honest form of naturalism. So, the question was recently posed to me online, or kind of de facto posed. Which are the religions you like, which are the religions you don't like? Oh, we should just say that all religions are bad. Well, let me respond to that claim by stating which religions I like, to most like to least like, from favorite to least favorite. Favorite, probably Amish. The Amish version of Protestant Christianity. After that, probably the evangelical Christians who don't get upset about Halloween. That'd be next on my list. Now, you might say, why? Why as an atheist would I like those two religions be my favorite? Because, pragmatically and honestly, they best put a couch and put out a good version, generally helpful set of useful, evolved moral values and moral traits. Evolved traits and morals which are couched within those religious contexts. So, it's a cost-benefit analysis. More benefit, less bad cost. So, with those religions, you can still, Amish, very good. And like I said, evangelical Christianity, which doesn't get upset about Halloween too much, that's good. And, general advocacy for things, ideas, functional ideas which will functionally help you live a better life. Not because their gods are literally real, but because evolution has had time to work on those religions in more useful ways to help people who believe in those meme sets, those evolved meme sets, to thrive more successfully. All right. So, this type of talk is heresy to a leftist atheist, to a gray-haired humanist member of a Unitarian Universalist SJW called heresy. And if you state such views to these people, argumentum ad hominem, that's ad hominem attacks, personal attacks, will come out of the mouths of these pea-brained individuals. Before I got married, I had some association with some ex-Mormon groups. Ex-Mormon. But there's one group called the Ex-Mormon Foundation, and they ran by a lady named Sue Emmett out of near Portland, and some other Portland people. They would run these conferences in Salt Lake City, ex-Mormon conferences run by the Ex-Mormon Foundation. So I attended several of these conferences. I even attended conferences before the Portland people took over. The first conferences were done by some Salt Lake people. For example, by a guy who goes by the pseudonym Heber C. Gall, whatever. That's his pseudonym. Then the Portland people took over. I attended these conferences, and during those conferences, I went down to Temple Square, protested a few times, and whatnot. But then, when I got married and had kids, the ex-Mormon Foundation people started having a rule which said you couldn't bring kids to their conferences. Now, when those conferences first started, they were more open-ended, easygoing, less rules, right? But then, the micromanaging assholes who ran the conference, Portland people who jumped out of Mormonism and into gray-haired seas of gray hair, seas of gray hair humanist groups, they got some of that anti-children poison from those humanist groups, Unitarian Universalist / humanist groups. Okay, anti-children poison entered their little brain of Sue Emmett and her daughter, and they apparently enacted rules that said no children at ex-Mormon conferences. And think about it, Mormons kind of tend to have more children, so having a rule that says no children allowed at ex-Mormon conference is kind of a stupid, dumb shit concept. I mean, you want Mormons to come to your conference? Or not? I guess not. Just the only people who can go really are the people who have been sucked in to the Stonewall SJW cult, the LGBTQPZ outlier freaks. Those people can go. Or the basement dwelling virgins who are morbidly obese, such as I used to be, in all those cases, they can go. But once the basement dwelling virgin loses 110 pounds, gets a wife, starts having children, he becomes less welcome at the ex-Mormon conferences. Okay, that's just an example. Another example of increased social incompatibility once I started having a normal life, a normal, inherently reproductive life, is the group Atheists of Utah. Atheists of Utah used to be, or when it first kind of started, it was run by a normal guy who liked women for his mates. His older wife was dying, and then he found a girlfriend, a pro-life atheist girlfriend, and he had a kid with her. Then he made the mistake, Atheists of Utah, of reaching out to the Stonewall Outlier Pride activity in Salt Lake City. That resulted in a pretty fast takeover of Atheists of Utah into a gay club. Once it had been converted into a gay club, me and my new family were not welcome at their parties. Okay? And also, when I went to their coffee chats, I heard one foul-mouthed lesbian say the following phrase: fucking stupid breeders. Now think about that. Think about that phrase. Think about how all the chain of events that led to you being brought into existence, and then you hear that phrase, fucking stupid breeders, from a lesbian member of Atheists of Utah. And she was exemplative of that group's general stance once they had been taken over by all the freaks who show up at Gay Pride Salt Lake. Outlier Pride. It's not really gay. It's more like non-reproductive dumb shit outlier pride. Anyway, so that happened. So I made note of that. Now, more recently, I decided to wade into some ex-Mormon groups on Facebook, and talk about how, well, jumping from the ultra-right to the ultra-left is not a panacea answer. There's abuses in Mormonism, but if you leave Mormonism and jump into the hands of the ultra-left socially and pseudo-intellectually, I'll add the word pseudo in there, you might end up being worse off, and that you can just glom onto new dogmas, new doctrines, engage in heresy trials against people in your new de facto religion, de facto cult. And it's a religion with less value because it has less evolved morals couched within it. And the religions which most usefully couch morals are ones which promote inherent reproduction. So, God, you say this to a leftist atheist, their heads will explode. You say it to your average dumb shit ex-Mormon, leftist ex-Mormon, by default, I guess, reactionary, the expletives will start coming out of their little ex-Mormon mouth. So, that's the situation. So, Sean Carroll is not interested in moving naturalism forward. Dan Dennett, they've all got Sam Harris. They've got basically Trump derangement syndrome, But pragmatically and honestly, Trump embodies the working class values of my Democrat father. And he wants to defeat the slimy globalists who want to screw over America. So, anyway, that's my walking commentary for today. Off to a work meeting next. All right.